Thank you very much for agreeing to come and chat to me today about Tuu Biz and making a difference. You and I have known each other a long, long time now, and I'd like you to explain to the viewers a little bit about the background of your career before getting to Tuu Biz, which we'll come on to in a minute. So can you give us a sort of a high-level overview of what you did and how you did it, why you did it, what led you to creating Tuu Biz?
Well, I started my career as a marriage counsellor. The minute I started training as a marriage counsellor, I realised that this was going to change my life. I was asked lots of questions about who I was, and I started to think. So this is many years ago, and I always say that I didn't start thinking until I was 30 years old. I trained as a marriage counsellor, I started work, I then trained as a group therapist, and I was really interested about how an individual sits in the world in the group in which they exist, whether it's a therapeutic group, a family group, a group of friends, a work group. After I trained as the group therapist, I felt that I wanted to help people learn about themselves more, and not just in the therapeutic world, but in the business world. And I started my own company called The Challenge of Excellence, which for me epitomised everything that I would hope to aspire to, is to become excellent in whatever I do. I do test myself, I push myself to test myself in circumstances that I think I'm not going to be particularly comfortable. The most extreme of those would be a physical environment, because I'm not naturally physically gifted. And one of the critical points in my emotional and professional life was the experience I had in America on a ropes course, where I was climbing a tree, on staples on the tree, and I had to reach a platform that was about 50 feet high on a tree trunk that was slightly waving on a small platform about 1 foot square. And I had to jump from that platform to catch a pair of rings, like in a trapeze. And in order to do that, you were on a belay system that was being held by a person on the ground, a person who technically knew what they were doing with my belay system. When I was 3/4 of the way up the tree trunk, I was getting physically very tired because it was high and my legs were shaking. And I found it almost impossible to take the next 3 steps up the trunk to get to the platform. And the guy at the platform said to me, "Here's my hand, take it." And I thought to myself, no, I've got to do this by myself. There was no way I was going to give up and go down to the ground. And I couldn't reach the next staple. So I thought, well, you've got to go upwards, Susan. You'll have to take his hand. And he gave me the final pull up, and I got up to the platform. I wasn't sure how happy I was at that point, because I'd had to take help, and I didn't like to do that. But I stood there, and the guy on the ground that had me on the rope said, "Well, now you have to change your help system, Susan, because now you've got to switch from me holding your life to you taking your own life and switching your cable and putting a static belay system above your head." And he said, "And I'm going to go." And I said, I'm not doing that. He said, well, he asked me probably one of the most important questions that I can think of. He said, "You don't need to answer this out loud, but who do I represent then?" And this was at the point before I started my company. And I was divorced with 2 small children. And I realised that it was my ex-husband, and that he was still supporting me, and that I needed to move from doing work that wasn't paying very much, kept me financially dependent on him. And I said, right, that's it. So I hooked the belay in, and I watched this rope. I remember seeing it like a snake curl like this and thud onto the ground. And I had this huge sense of relief. And from that point, and release, I jumped, and I swung down a zip wire at that point on my own belay system. And as I swung, I thought, this is my new business. I am going to build a ropes course in England, and I'm going to work with people and use this as a medium. This medium that I find so challenging, that is not my comfort zone, look what it's done for me.
It did incredibly well, didn't it? I mean,
yeah.
The company, the Challenge of Excellence, ended up working literally all around the world with major multinational companies, isn't it?
Yeah, we worked with, I designed all the programs according to objectives that the teams talked about, and they would have been hard objectives, how they were going to change strategy, and I would design 3- and 4-day workshops for these executive teams. I would always use the outdoors as the medium because I felt that it was a great leveller.
So after a fantastically successful career then in family business, consulting, working with these large multinational corporates and their senior leadership teams around the world, what on earth made you wake up one day and decide to set up Tuu Biz?
When I started the Challenge of Excellence and when I started counselling, I wanted to do the best I could do to help other people achieve the best that they could and what they wanted. Not what I thought they wanted, what they wanted. And I did that initially through the individual, then through a group, then through business. And I thought, I'm not really reaching far enough. I think I've got more potential. Now, maybe that was a bit egotistical, or maybe it was, I didn't feel satisfied that I'd got far enough. And I had
far enough in the sense of impacting on as many people as possible.
Yes, yes. And a lot of clients used to say to me, both in my counselling world and in my corporate world, well, I wished I'd known this as a child. And I thought, yeah, what about what's going on in schools? What about teachers? What about the way we teach? You know, what about the way we help people learn as opposed to what we teach? Why aren't we doing some of this in schools? Why aren't we teaching kids what it means to be in a group or a team or leadership? If you're good at sport, you get an experience of it, but you don't raise awareness of it in kids at school. We don't focus on it. So personal development, teamship and leadership were things that I thought kids ought to learn in school. And my partner, who's a former professional footballer, Tony Woodcock, he was complaining about football, the world of football, and how what a bad rap it's got, and sometimes rightly so. And I'm going back 6 or 7 years now. And I said, you know what, stop moaning about it. Why don't we do something about it? Why don't we do something for the younger generation? Why don't we take all the stuff that I've done for all these years and everything you've done in the world of football and subsequently in business, and why don't we develop something for teenagers, for kids? That is how Tuu Biz came about. The word Tuu is actually the original game of football from ancient China about 2,500 years ago. So Tuu Biz became the name of our mission, the mission being to empower young people to be everything they can be, to work at what they love, to empower them, but to give them some skills, to help them become aware of who they are, how they sit in a group. And it uses the game of football as metaphor for learning around teamship and leadership. And of course, the spirit of entrepreneurship. So we are nurturing the spirit of the entrepreneur, the attitude of an entrepreneur.
What's the age range of the young people who are going through the Tuu Biz program?
It was designed originally for 14 to 19-year-olds. We've had schools say, can we send 13-year-olds? We were a little bit dubious about that. But we've taken 13-year-olds, and some of them have excelled the best. But we've also delivered it to students at university up to the age of 37, so we've had adults run through this program too. And at the end of that program, they've got a ready-to-go, small, viable business.
Talk me through the program. What does it look like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4?
Okay, day 1, obviously the normal introductions, but they're all experiential, so they're all fun games to learn names. The kids know each other, sometimes they come from mixed schools, they don't know each other. We'll talk about how do you present yourself when you're going to introduce yourself to somebody, what impression do you want to make. We talk about networking skills, why is it important to network. Day 1 we also say, okay, we're going to go and play a game of football. Go play for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes we stop the game and say, come over here. What did you do in that first 10 minutes. Did you have a plan? No. Did you have a leader? No. Did you fill any gaps on the pitch that were empty? Did you? No. Did you notice what the competition was doing? Not really. Would it be important to think about those things? Because all of those things, when you start up a business, you need a plan, you need some leadership, you need to know what the competition is doing, you need to have roles and responsibilities. Oh, they very quickly get that. Briefly, at the end of day one, we ask them what they love. Write it up there, and also what you're good at. And what we then do is cluster those interests into common themes. Those clusters are the germ of their business idea. So whilst they're playing in a football team in one kind of group, by the end of day 4 they're going to end up in a different kind of group. So they will morph from the football team to a business team with common interest. Day 2, we talk about trust, and we take them through a simulation of a business startup. They learn about break-even and return on investment. We then play football again, same teams, but this time we're now focused on teamship and leadership and all the criteria of team development. And you start to see these teams really now functioning. They've got clear roles and responsibilities in that. Even if you can't play football, it doesn't matter. You can still have the role. Day 3 focuses on taking the idea from day 1 and looking at individual talents. So if you're good at maths and I'm good at English and she's good at IT, you're going to start to become the finance director, I'm going to become perhaps sales and marketing, and he's going to perhaps become the IT director. We provide them with a written template for a business plan, and now our mentors sit with them and start to develop research on their idea, the competition, their roles and responsibilities, a small marketing plan, their financials, and they write a 10-page business plan. So the whole 4 days is really designed where you're doing some mental work, some emotional work, some physical work, back to mental work, back to emotional. So there's, the kids are exhausted at the end of it. It's a very intense day. They suddenly think, I can make money from this idea. I suddenly like maths. Because they can see, I can make some money from this, even if it's £50.
Or they like selling, or they like designing.
Exactly. It's something they love. They've got a passion. They've got an interest. They now want to work. What's
the transformative process or awakenings or learnings that a lot of the kids get just having been through the program?
In that 4 days, there is a journey that these people go through. You can physically see the change, and you can feel the change in them. And it's quite difficult to quantify it because it's quite subjective. But one of the little tests, if you like, that we do is to ask them on day 1 at the beginning, how many of you here would be interested in starting up a business of your own? Because youngsters come on this program for all different kinds of reasons, dictated by their school. Perhaps 4 to 5% of them say, yeah.
So a small percentage.
Very, very small. And we're not surprised. And this is one of the reasons that we're really interested to nurture entrepreneurship, because the spirit of entrepreneurship, because it's absolutely not on their radar screen at all. At the end of the program, we ask the same question. And I would say between 85%, just over 85%, raise their hands and say, yeah. They've not even thought, they're suddenly thinking, I didn't even think that this was possible, because starting up a business is like, who can do that?
How wonderful.
And now here they've got some steps. They can conceive of it. That to us is success.
Yes, you've opened up a new possibility.
A complete, and they've got
they
a
didn't
little
even
roadmap.
have on their radar screen.
Not on their radar screen, and that's why we want to do it in schools. So not only are they thinking that they may have the entrepreneurial spirit, they're more self-aware, they're more confident. Those things don't go away. A young girl, 14 years old, with her friend, she liked dancing. She developed a board game. Each move on the board represented a part of a dance. And so as you play with your family, you have to get up and do this dance, this piece of the dance. And then eventually the whole dance comes to a whole piece, and the family gets up and does this dance. She wanted them to be physically fit and play a board game at the same time, and she loves dancing. This was 3 years ago. Yesterday I received an email, unsolicited, from her mother saying, just want to let you know that we're still selling Express Yourself, that my daughter has passed her GCSEs, in particular the business and ICT, with distinction. She would never have done this without the confidence to go forward. She was somebody that was very quiet on the programme. It's made a difference in her life. You know, the entrepreneurial spirit, believing that she can do what she has the ability to do. This is making a difference. I mean, this expression, making a difference, is a very powerful thing. I smile, it makes me smile straight away. Makes me smile, makes me think, oh, the world can be a better place.
So 1,700 young people have had the gift of going through this programme, and I guess it's too early days yet, but I mean, I'm sure in a few years' time, some of them are going to be household names with highly successful businesses. It'd be lovely to follow, in a sort of longitudinal study sense, what happens to, and even if they end up doing something that's not related to their original idea, but they still end up being entrepreneurs. And
yeah, I mean, the point for schools and education is that we nurture the entrepreneurial spirit, whether that is to actually start businesses because they're at school, their business ideas have to be small enough for them to manage while at school, or whether it just encourages them to think entrepreneurially. That is our aim for young people at school, the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur.
This programme is obviously making a difference to a huge number of children. It strikes me that it's very scalable, not only in the UK, but elsewhere around the world. What's your vision for the business?
We want to reach 1 million young people globally. It's a massive vision.
Well, the enterprise is still young, it's obviously doing really well, and I'm sure, over the next few years it will grow and grow, and what you've already done has made a huge difference, not only to the 1,700 children who've been through the programme, but to their families, to their communities,
and to the mentors who have
and to the
delivered
mentors who work with them.
And I think that's quite an important piece. The mentors that have worked with them, it's changed their lives too, because they're now doing different things than they had done before. So, and we want it to be a win-win for everything and everyone that's involved with it.
Well, Susan, thank you very much indeed for coming in today
Thank you,
and being interviewed. It's always lovely to see you, but I salute you and congratulate you and Tony on creating a real gift to young people.
Thank you, David.